roster on paper. But these are the tiers that they fall into. So most of these, I believe, some of them are a little lower or higher than I feel they should be, but that's because one side of the ball is elite or one side of the ball is lacking more not than others, or I'm just lower on their coach than most people. So starting here with tier 5 today. We did tier 6 in the last video. So tier 5 is the unlikely to make the playoffs tier. And we started off with team 28 in the Carolina Panthers, coming in at number 28 in my power rankings. Starting with their key departures and additions, I'm going to try and make this video like 45 minutes, so bear with me. So they lose Joe Brady due to disputes with Matt Rule, their offensive coordinator. Cam Newton back out the door again after his second stint with Carolina. John Miller, their starting guard last year. Matt Paradis, longtime starting center, had some health problems last year. They go to Bozeman instead this year. They lose Daquan Jones, solid run defending piece. Morgan Fox, very versatile, very underrated player in the NFL, I'd say. He's very much a big reason why Carolina had early success on defense last year. They lose Hassan Reddick. He heads to Philly. They lose Jermaine Carter, A.J. Bouye, and then Stephon Gilmore in the secondary as well. They add in Ben McAdoo, who I think this was one of the worst hires of the offseason. I'm not a fan of Ben McAdoo at all. They bring in Baker Mayfield via a trade over from Cleveland. I think that this was definitely an upgrade over any quarterback that they had in the building. I think solid move. Carolina really got nothing to lose. Matt Rule has nothing to lose, so I thought it was a great addition. They bring in Matt Corral in the third round, trade up for him with New England. I thought this was a phenomenal A-plus pick. Corral was a top 20 player for me in the draft. But unfortunately, he re-injures the foot that he did in the game against Baylor, the bowl game. And he's out for the year with a Lisfranc injury. So we will not get to see what he looks like. I didn't think he was going to play this year. I didn't think he was ready this year to play. But next year, depending on how the situation goes with Baker, with Darnold, could see him maybe being their starting quarterback. Who knows? They get Christian McCaffrey back, who was hurt pretty much the entire season. They drafted Khem Ekwonu in the first round, an absolute mauling tackle. And then they add Austin Corbett, Bradley Bozeman, some much-needed additions to the offensive line. They add in a veteran, Matt Ioannidis, Damian Wilson at linebacker. J.C. Horn comes back from injury. He only played 3 games last season. Looked pretty good in those games, but this is essentially his rookie season. And then they add the veteran Xavier Woods at safety and Johnny Hecker as a notable punter. So then we move into their offense. And I have them ranked 26th. I think before Baker, they were lower than that. I'm almost positive Baker does make a difference to this team, as the quarterback is 19th. Again, this is with Deshaun Watson being suspended 11 games. So I basically calculated how many games Watson and Brissett are playing and then basically leveled them off and made it even. So they're 19th. He's really 20th in reality, but 19th because of the Watson suspension. I think Baker got a bad rap last season. I really did. I think that a lot of it was due to the injury. And I think he was trying to prove his toughness. He was trying to prove that he earned a new contract with Cleveland. And he was just not reading the field. He was making mistakes. He was just slinging it instead of really, looking back and reading the field and playing quarterback the way he was capable of playing in 2020. I think Baker is a starting caliber quarterback in this league, no doubt. And I think that in this situation, he could prove to be a starter again. He's just got to stay healthy. So, and then behind him, Sam Darnold, obviously, it's a really interesting quarterback room because I think all 4 of these guys should be on an NFL roster that includes Corral. Darnold loses the starting job here to Baker. It's going to be really interesting to see if he's traded, if they keep him. He said in a press conference he still believes he's a starter in this league, so we'll see if he gets another opportunity somewhere else. And then P.J. Walker, solid backup to have in the room there. So they have a mix of skill sets there in their room. Running backs are 5th. I think personally, when McCaffrey is healthy, he is maybe the best running back in football from a value standpoint because nobody can do what McCaffrey can do. I don't think McCaffrey's as good of a runner as Dalvin Cook, as Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. I don't think he's as good of a runner as any of those guys. But where McCaffrey's value is he can also play in the slot, which none of those guys can do. McCaffrey's the only running back in the league that can play slot receiver. He can play outside receiver if really need be. He can play running back. He can play a wing back type role. McCaffrey's the most versatile back in the league. If he stays healthy, which obviously the last couple seasons he hasn't, but the one season he stayed healthy, he was 1,000 with 100 catches. That type of production we haven't seen since Roger Craig in the 80s. Like, McCaffrey is that dude. So he really needs to stay healthy in order for this team to make a run at a playoff spot, which I think if he does stay healthy, they could. I'm just currently not betting on that. Their weapons I have ranked 18th. They definitely somewhat got better. Someone say the same. DJ Moore is an absolute stud. One of the best receivers in football. Not talked about enough. Great route runner. Great hands. Robbie Anderson, perennial deep threat. Terrace Marshall, I think, should have a bigger role with this team this year. Tommy Tremble as well should have a bigger role in his second year out of Notre Dame. And then obviously McCaffrey's a freak dog out of the backfield. Their O-line I have ranked 29th. It's not a great O-line. You drafted Kemakwanu, which was an interesting pick with the other tackles still on the board. I really thought they were going to go Charles Cross because it's just they're more of like that spread college-y offense, and I felt like he fit that the best. But Kemekwanu's upside is tremendous. He's already probably one of the best run blockers in the league day one from the tackle position, if not the best. And his pass protection is going to need work. I think he's going to need to be able to refine that and everything. Brady Christensen moves into guard. Doesn't meet their length thresholds for a tackle, but he should improve in year two. Bradley Bozeman, Austin Corbett are solid pieces. And then Taylor Moton's your rock at right tackle. One of the best right tackles in football. Absolute mauling dude in the run game. And a pretty good pass blocker in his own right. They got some decent depth there as well. But overall, this offensive line is just very unproven. That's why they rank 29th. Offensive coaching, I have them 32nd. Ben McAdoo is trash, man. He is just god-awful. I have nothing else to say about Ben McAdoo. He's trash. I respect Matt Rule as a coach, but Matt Rule's kind of taking the CEO, like, backing off version of it. So it's really going to be Ben McAdoo calling plays, and that's just a recipe for disaster. So their average rank is 22.51. Moving on to the defense, we have them at 22nd here. So a little bit better. I have their run defense ranked 23rd, which is definitely lower than I had them ranked before. Brian Burns isn't a great run defender. He's definitely more of a pass rusher. Derek Brown, Matt Ioannidis, those are the community guys plugging holes up front. Derek Brown's a great run defender. Icho Gross-Matos is a pretty good run defender. Great length, able to shed blocks. Shaq Thompson, beast in the run game. Damian Wilson, Corey Littleton are more third down linebackers per se, but they're okay run defenders. And then for depth-wise, nothing really of note in the run game. Davion Nixon, Bravion Roy are fine on the IDL side, but other than that, it's more rookies or unproven guys. Pass rush, I have him 15th. Brian Burns is a beast, man. If Brian Burns had any lick of power, he's probably a top 10 to 5 pass rusher in the league. I wouldn't put him there. He's probably around like the 15 to 12 range, but I expect him to continue to just be Brian Burns. Derek Brown, I expect to be better this year in the pass rush game. He's starting to find how to bull rush guys and be able to get by those interior offensive linemen. Ioannidis is a good pass rusher, has been for a long time in Washington. Gross-Matos, another guy that I think will take another step here, in the coming year. He's got all the talent in the world. He just has not been able to transmit his athletic ability to being a good pass rusher. And then Marquise Haynes, Frankie Louisville, Mari Barno, good guys on the edge depth, and Bravion Roy, Davion Nixon in the interior. Linebackers I have them ranked 21st. Outside of Shaq Thompson, I'm not really excited. Luvu's kind of an interesting hybrid guy. Other than that, though, Brandon Smith, look out for him from Penn State. He's an athletic freak, but I'm not really, I'm not excited about Corey Littleton or Damian Wilson. Secondary, I have them 15th. They're a very good young secondary. Dante Jackson, absolute beast, man. Really, really good player. J.C. Horn coming back in year 2 here, expecting him to be good. C.J. Henderson, I'm expecting him to be better as well. I think he was in a tough situation in Jacksonville. Had a good rookie season, struggled second year coming over to Carolina, so I assume him to be better. Rashawn Melvin, decent CB4, and then you got some athletic freaks like Kalen Barnes and Stanley Thomas Oliver in there as CB depth. Jeremy Chin, one of my favorite players in the league. He just does it all, man. Xavier Woods, Justin Burris, good back, safety 2-3s. And then they got some nice young prospects there in Kenny Robinson, Sean Chandler, as well as safety. Defensive coaching, I have them 18th. Phil Snow's a decent defensive coordinator. Nothing special. And then home field, I have them 28th. So overall, for this team, I have them, again, they are 28th overall. And their offense is 26th. We talked about it. I think the key for their offense is McCaffrey has to stay healthy. Otherwise, they're going to struggle. Defensively, they're 22nd overall, along with special teams. And culture, I have them 30th. At this point, I'm out on Matt Rule. Honestly thought he should have been fired last year, but he's getting another opportunity here. Maybe Baker can help him climb out of this, but I'm just not betting on it. Their average rank across the board was 25. Moving on to their strengths and weaknesses, I think pass rush upside is there with Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Iker Gross-Matos. If Brown and Gross-Matos take the next step, I think they could be a formidable pass rush. I love their secondary. They got young guys there. They're hungry. They're really, really good in that secondary. And then I like the Panthers' youth. Across the board, they have a lot of youth. It's a very young team. I think if they can develop these players in, over the next couple years, I think they'll be a formidable team in the NFC. Weaknesses, I have coaching. I'm not a fan of Matt Rule, like I talked about. I'm out on Matt Rule. I don't think he's a good coach. CMC's health. He has not been able to stay healthy the last couple years, and that's going against his team right now because I think if CMC proves he can stay healthy, this team's more towards that 20 range rather than being at 28 here. And then inexperienced O-line. I think they have 2 brand new starters and then 2 guys that are coming from other teams. So that O-line also needs to be able to gel together as well. It's going to take a couple weeks for that to happen. But that wraps up my number 28 team, the Carolina Panthers. And we move on to my number 27 team, and that is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. A little bit surprised that they were this high, especially above a team like Carolina. But I think it's due to a few reasons that we will get into throughout this segment. So starting with their key departures and additions, we have Ken Norton Jr. leaving as defensive coordinator. Long time, brought a Super Bowl to Seattle, quarterback Russell Wilson, out the door in a trade to Denver. Gerald Everett is gone, a solid tight end. Dwayne Brown, longtime left tackle, heads to the Jets. Brandon Scheller, our other starting tackle, leaves. Ethan Pochitz, center, leaves. Then you got some edge defenders in Dunlap, Benson Mayowa, and Kerry Hyder Jr. leaving, along with Rasheem Green. You have longtime staple at linebacker Bobby Wagner out the door, and then their best corner from last year, DJ Reed, is also out the door. So a lot of notable departures there. Coming into the organization, we have Sean Desai replacing Ken Norton at defensive coordinator. Drew Locke, who is a guy I'm definitely intrigued by this year, a guy that I was super high on coming out of Missouri, thought he was QB2 in that class. Hasn't worked out that way. We'll see if he can prove his doubters wrong here in Seattle. They draft Kenny Walker Jr. or Kenny Walker III in the second round, bring over Noah Fant, that trade for Russell Wilson, draft Charles Cross in the first round, one of the best pass-protecting tackles we have seen come out in recent memory. Abraham Lucas, another solid tackle out of Washington State, bring over Austin Blythe from the Rams at center, bring in Shelby Harris, a really solid interior defensive lineman, very good leader as well over in that Russell Wilson trade. Sign Quentin Jefferson, Uchenna Nwosu to help out that pass rush. Justin Coleman comes back to Seattle for another stint, and then they draft Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati. So moving into the offense, they are ranked 30th, and the biggest reason is I think Drew Locke is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. If it was Geno Smith, they would also be ranked 32nd. I just personally, I want to believe in Drew Locke. I really do. I want to believe in the kid that I saw at Missouri, but he has not showed that kid. He's really indecisive. He just kind of sprays footballs. He takes too many risks that are just unnecessary. He just makes stupid reads. But part of me wants to believe in Drew Locke because I think he's a better quarterback than what he showed in the NFL, and he has an opportunity here to showcase that in Seattle. Their running backs are ranked 22nd, which you may think is a little low. And you might be right, but I think, Rashad Penny came in last season, had a really good 5-6 weeks to end the season. He was electric. One of the best running backs in football during that time. It's just, can he stay healthy? And Kenny Walker as well, who's dealing with a hernia or a hamstring injury or something like that, he also, has had, injury questions. So it's whether or not those guys can stay healthy. There's not really a whole lot of depth behind them. I like Travis Homer as kind of a kick returner type guy, change of pace dude, but they don't really have much besides that. So they really need Rashad Penny and Kenny Walker to stay healthy in order to be successful in the run game. Their weapons, which are the highest ranking they have on offense, is 15th. DK Metcalf, borderline top 10 receiver, doesn't have as wide of a skill set as some of these other guys. He's really good at streaks, slants, in routes, but he just can't run the full route tree. Tyler Lockett, one of the best deep threats in football, been an underrated player for years. Dwayne Eskridge, Bo Melton, Freddie Swain, and Penny Hart, guys who I expect will be fighting for that receiver 3 role, fighting for downs there, so it'll be interesting to see which of those guys can step up. Bring in Noah Fant. We talked about really athletic tight end, vertical threat, not much of a blocker, and Will Dissly as well behind him is a nice 1-2 duo. Those guys are similar but also different skill sets, so Drew Locke will have a familiar face in Noah Fant here in Seattle. Their offensive line is 28th, and I had them higher. I really did. I wanted to put these guys higher, but it's just, I can't yet. I really need to see this offensive line prove that it can be more towards I think I had them 22nd or 21st. I need to see them be that. I love the Charles Cross pick. I thought that was exactly the pick Seattle should have taken in that moment. I like Damian Lewis. He's a really solid guard. I think he has a bright future in this league. Blythe, I'm not excited about at center. I thought he was one of the worst starters in football. Gabe Jackson's an older veteran, but he's a solid right guard at this point. And Abraham Lucas I'm really excited about, but they have zero depth behind them. So they really need these guys to stay healthy and play at the top of their level. If not, they're going to struggle. So I have next, their offensive coaching is also ranked 28th. Just not a big fan of it personally, for an average rank of 26.03 here on offense. Their defense is where it gets a little bit better, in my opinion. So defensively, I have Seattle ranking, a little higher in 27th. So their run defense 13th. I think their run defense is probably the best part of their defense. They just have guys that are, hustlers that will make those hustle plays. Darrell Taylor especially came on late of last season. Got to keep your eye on Shelby Harris, Poona Ford, Al Woods. Solid IDL guys. Uchenna Nwosu's more of that speed bend type guy. Is more going to be an effect in the pass rush rather than the run game. Jordan Brooks is a stud linebacker. Really good run defender. Really good at identifying runs and where to be. And he's always in the right place at the right time. Cody Barton, Joel Yigbueni are guys that could step up and make, kind of the next step. And then in terms of depth-wise, Boye Mafe is a guy to keep an eye on in the run and pass game. Alton Robinson, I loved coming out of Syracuse, hoping he can take that next step. Tyreek Smith out of Ohio State, really good player as well. So those are guys to keep an eye on there on the edge. Pass rush, they're 26th. They don't have a proven edge rusher on this team. I think Darrell Taylor can turn into a solid 2, but I don't really think he's a 1. Uchenna Nwosu's like a 2 or a 3 on a championship team, most likely a 3. Shelby Harris, Poona Ford are solid, but they're nothing special. And then they have some solid young guys for depth in Alton Robinson, Boye Mafe, and Tyreek Smith. We'll see how they fare. And then Quentin Jefferson's a good pass rusher on the interior. Linebackers, they're 29th. They got nothing proven besides Jordan Brooks. Jordan Brooks is a stud, but everybody else kind of has to prove themselves in that linebacking room. Secondary, 28th. I like Sidney Jones. They really have a bunch of guys that can play slot. In Sidney Jones, Trey Brown, Justin Coleman, John Reed, Tariq Woolen. There's a bunch of guys that are like mainly slot guys. So if you play Sidney Jones on the outside, that'd be interesting. But I think he's going to play the slot. So then you probably have Artie Burns on the outside with Justin Coleman. Maybe Trey Brown or Kobe Bryant or Tariq Woolen or somebody like that. But I think that it's going to be Sidney Jones in the slot and then Trey Brown and Artie Burns most likely, with Justin Coleman mixing in a lot as well. Young, interesting secondary, but definitely will have its struggles. And then you got Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Marquise Blair is a really good trio in the safety room. Defensive coaching rank, I have them 27th. And then home field advantage, I have them 2nd, because whenever you go to Seattle, the 12th man is a force to be reckoned with. So only short of Kansas City, who I have at number 1 in that spot. And then moving on to their overall team here, they're coming in at 27th with the 30th best offense, the 27th best defense. Special teams, I have them at 5. Dixon's a really good punter. Jason Myers is a great kicker. And then culture, I have them 10th. I think Pete Carroll has dropped past couple years, but I still think Pete Carroll's a very solid coach in this league. And they have an average ranking there of 24.7. Then moving on to their strengths and weaknesses, I have the Locket Metcalf duo as a strength. This is really going to help out Drew Lock, I think, to be able to have 2 go-to receivers out there, along with this tight end Noah Fant. Guys that are proven in this league to get open. I like their youth at offensive line. Abraham Lucas, Damian Lewis, and Charles Cross. Really solid trio to build with. Those guys can grow together, hopefully become one of the best offensive lines in football. And then their run defense is another strength of them. They got a lot of bodies to throw at people. And their players are much better suited to play against a run than rush the passer. Weaknesses, quarterback play. They got the worst QB room in the league, in my opinion, with Locke or Geno Smith, whoever starts. Despite their youth, an offensive line, I deem is a good thing. It's also they're very inexperienced, so that I have as a weakness. And then inexperienced corners. Outside of Coleman and Sidney Jones, Artie Burns is really he's been in the league for 6 years, but hasn't played a ton of snaps because he's always hurt. So they really don't have a guy there that you can rely on, maybe except for Sidney Jones. So that might be a big struggle here, and teams might light up Seattle in the pass game. So that is it for my number 27 team. Moving on to my number 26 team. Sorry, Minardi, but they're not a good team in the New York Football Giants, who have a new coach who is hoping to get the best out of Daniel Jones this season. So moving on to their key departures and additions, we start with the entire staff turnover here. Joe Judge is gone as head coach. Jason Garrett gone as offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham gone as defensive coordinator. Then Devontae Booker, who played a lot last year when Saquon was hurt, out the door. Evan Ingram, former first-round tight end, out the door. Kyle Rudolph, who they signed last year, out the door. Nate Solder. Will Hernandez, both starters last year. Matt Skura, who played a lot of snaps for them, is gone. Billy Price, who played a lot of snaps for them, is gone. Austin Johnson, on the defensive side of the ball, is gone. Lorenzo Carter, who we talked about in the last video for Atlanta, is out the door here. Reggie Ragland, who was one of their starting linebackers last season, is out the door. And then James Bradbury at corner and Logan Ryan at safety are out the door. So some guys leaving there in secondary. Some key additions to this team. Brian Daboll comes in as head coach. I think he's my highest ranked first-year head coach out of anybody. Then we have Mike Kafka coming in as the offensive coordinator. Wink Martindale coming over from Baltimore as the DC. Evan Neal, who was my number 1 overall player in this draft class. They drafted at number 7 overall. Coming in to play tackle for this team, they bring over Mark Lewinsky, solid starter from Indianapolis. John Feliciano, a veteran from Buffalo. They draft Josh Zudu from North Carolina. They drafted Kayvon Thibodeau with their very first-round pick, who will be missing a couple weeks due to a backside block from Thad Moss. And then we have Blake Martinez, who's their best linebacker, coming back from injury last season. So we move right into the offense, which I have ranked 24th. I have the quarterback ranked 22nd. I think Daniel Jones personally gets more hate than he deserves. That Giants offense last year was unwatchable when he was out last season with the neck injury. Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon commanded probably the worst offense I've ever seen in my entire life at the professional level. It was that bad. So I think we need to give Daniel Jones some credit there. Yes, he has his moments where he just, throws a stupid interception, fumbles the ball. But I think Daniel Jones can improve under Brian Daboll and maybe prove that he can be this team's franchise quarterback for the next 5-10 years. And behind him, veteran Tyrod Taylor, good guy to have in the room, played a lot of football in his career. Hopefully he can help Daniel Jones, out this season. Moving on to the running backs, I do have them ranked 9th, a little lower than people may expect. I love Saquon Barkley. I think this dude's an absolute stud. When healthy, he's probably the second best running back in football, maybe the first, but he's definitely up there. He's just an absolute freak. He just needs to stay healthy. Behind him, I like Matt Breida addition, brings some speed to this offense. Gary Brightwell has looked really good in preseason action as well. So Saquon really needs to stay healthy for this run game to be what it can be and what we have always thought it could be when Saquon is healthy. Moving on to their weapons, they're 25th, man. So Kenny Golladay, when they first came to New York, I was like, wow, that's a good move by New York. They don't have a number 1 wide receiver. And Kenny Golladay was absolutely awful last season. I mean, it was probably the worst signing in football just based off of a 1-year thing. Kenny Golladay can't get any worse this season, man. He was atrocious last season. He looked slow. He looked out of shape. He didn't catch a touchdown last year, which was his money-making thing at Detroit, and this looks like a genius move by Detroit, who I criticized for letting Kenny Golladay walk out the door. And Kenny Golladay has had injury issues, but just last season, he just was not good. Sterling Shepard, same thing. He looked really good last season when he was healthy, but he got hurt again. Kadarius Toney, same thing. He wasn't healthy last season, but when they fed him the ball against Dallas, he looked like a legit first-round receiver. Darius Slayton's a guy that I have always liked ever since he got his opportunity here when Odell went down in that season with Eli Manning. He's a guy that they're shopping right now because of guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, Richie James behind him. Alex Bachman has looked pretty good as well. So he may or not be on this team come the beginning of the season. Wan'Dale Robinson, I wasn't really a fan of that pick. He just didn't really excite me. I thought he was a worse version of Laviska Shenault when he came out. And then depth-wise, I like Richie James as a potential gadget-type player, maybe punt returner. Colin Johnson, I really, really liked Colin Johnson as that big-body, physical guy. But he tore his Achilles, so he is done for the year. Just a shame. Tight end-wise, I think Daniel Bellinger is probably your tight end 1 by week 6. Jordan Akins, nothing special. Neither is Ricky Seals-Jones. They're more, Ricky Seals-Jones is a receiver tight end hybrid, and Jordan Akins is just whatever. Moving on to the offensive line, I have him ranked 26th. Andrew Thomas is a stud left tackle I have Zudu projected at that left guard position, so he should be decent. In his rookie year, I think that he has the ability to be a starter in this league. Nick Gates is currently hurt, so it's probably Feliciano starting there. And then Mark Lewinsky at right guard and Evan Neal at right tackle. It's definitely better than the Giants have had in the past, for sure. But, a little uncertainty at this point with Feliciano probably starting at center and Zudu at left guard. I like the other three, but we'll see how they can improve throughout the season. And then offensive coaching, I have them 10th because Brian Daboll's a freaking stud, man. He's a stud coach in this league, in my opinion, and he will probably get the most he can out of this offense, which is why I am more optimistic about this team than others. Moving on to the defense side of the ball, not as optimistic as they come in at 28th here. So, starting with the run defense, they're ranked 28th, and they just... It's mainly because of their linebackers, man. Their linebackers are Blake Martinez, Tay Crowder, and Carter Coughlin. And I hate that. It is the worst linebacker core in the league, and it's not even close. Martinez is a good run defender, but Tay Crowder is more of like a Kazir White type will linebacker who's not really going to do much on the run. And Carter Coughlin's a good draft pick for them, but he's just nowhere near, ready to start in this league. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, good run defenders. Thibodeau, when he wants to be, is a good run defender. Ojulari isn't as good just because he's smaller. And then Jihad Ward's a good run defender on the edge, along with O'Shane Zimenez, Quincy Roche. So you got some decent guys in there. A guy that I had my eye on was Darian Beavers, but he tore his ACL, which just sucks because I feel like he would have been on the field for this team this year. Pass rush-wise, the Giants are 25th. I think there's upside there for sure. Thibodeau was my favorite pass rusher in this draft. I thought he was the number one edge. I think that he can be the number one edge, and when he gets on the field, I hope we see that. Azeez Ojulari, I think, can take that next step and be a really solid number two. Leonard Williams is a good pass rusher in his own right. And Dexter Lawrence has looked better as a pass rusher than a run defender in recent years. Linebackers, I'm skipping, man. They're trash. That's all I have to say about them. Secondary-wise, they're 30th. Outside of really Xavier McKinney, I don't like this secondary. Julian Love is a solid safety, slot corner hybrid. Dane Belton's a really athletic safety from Iowa. But Adoree Jackson, really, I don't want to call him a bust first-round pick, but he just hasn't been that like electric guy we saw at USC in the NFL. He really hasn't been. Aaron Robinson I liked coming out of Central Florida. Long, lengthy press corner, but he didn't play a whole lot last year. Darnay Holmes is a fine slot corner. Cordell Flott is probably going to be their dime, and then they have zero depth behind that. So it's going to be a long year for this Giants pass defense, let me tell you that. Defensive coaching, I have them 19th. Wink Martindale, very good, very experienced defensive coordinator. And then home field advantage, I have them at 22nd for an average rank of 26.36. So moving into their overall offense, 24th, like we talked about. Overall defense, 28th. Special teams is 14th, and culture's 14th. I'm definitely higher on Brian Daboll than most people, and that is an average rank of 23.4. Moving to the strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, offensive coaching. Brian Daboll is one of the best offensive minds in football. I think he's going to be able to get the most out of this team. If there's anybody that can do it, it's Daboll, of the new head coaches and stuff. I think their run offense is going to be really good, especially if Saquon stays healthy. I think they have the ability to finally be able to run the football, take some pressure off Daniel Jones, have him be less of a focal point in this offense. And then I love their pass rush upside with Thibodeau, Ojulari as a nice young edge duo there for the Giants. Their weaknesses, O-line. We don't know what that's going to look like, especially with Nick Gates out right now. Feliciano's probably stepping in there at center. So it's a young offensive line with a mix of some veterans. We'll see how they kind of gel. Their linebackers are the worst in the league, and their secondary is very, very unproven. So that will wrap up my number 26 team. So moving to my number 25 team is the other team from New York, in the New York Jets here. who might be missing Zach Wilson for a couple of weeks. I did not incorporate that into this calculation just because I didn't know how long he was going to be missing. So we start with their key departures. They're losing Keelan Cole, solid veteran receiver. Jameson Crowder, really good slot receiver. Ryan Griffin, Tyler Kroft, couple of just veteran tight ends. Morgan Moses, who was probably their best offensive lineman last year. Greg Van Roten, a veteran guard. Follow Runzu Fadukasi, who's one of the best run-defending defensive tackles in the league. Shaq Lawson on the edge. And then Marcus May, who they let walk, and he joins New Orleans. Their key additions, they're getting the best running back from this draft class, in my opinion, in Breece Hall. Dude is an absolute beast. Le'Veon Bell 2.0. Mark my words. Garrett Wilson, one of the best receivers in this draft class, is coming here. CJ Uzomah, part of this Super Bowl runner-up Bengals last season. They also bring in Tyler Conklin, coming over from Minnesota. Laken Tomlinson, probably the most underrated signing in football last year was Laken Tomlinson, coming to the Jets. One of the best guards in football, really good pass protector, really good run blocker as well. Very good fit here in this wide zone offense. Mekhi Becton, who really we shouldn't even have here because he's probably out for the season again. Carl Lawson, they get back after him tearing his Achilles last year. Jacob Martin, who was a really solid player for Houston last year. Jermaine Johnson, they drafted in the first round. Really good run defender with upside as a pass rusher. DJ Reed, who was Seattle's best corner. Perfect fit for this scheme. Sauce Gardner coming over from Cincinnati. One of the most polarizing players in this draft class. And then Jordan Whitehead, who was a very good starting safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So then we go to the offense. Overall offense, I have them at 25th. Starting at the quarterback position, they are 24th. I expect Zach Wilson to be much better than he was in his rookie season when we see him on the field, hopefully very soon. He did struggle last season, but I do think with the upgraded weapons, with another year in the system, I think Zach Wilson's going to be a better quarterback just coming into the season. I have him ranked 24th. Running back wise, I have them 20th. I can't rank them super high, but let me tell you, buy Breece Hall stock, man. He's a phenomenal football player. Watched him for the last 3 years at Iowa State, just absolutely embarrassed dudes in the Big 12. He's going to be a beast, man. He's a touchdown machine. He's a home run threat. Really good fit in this scheme. Great power. Showed off the speed of the combine. I think that Kenny Walker was the more home run threat running back, but Breece Hall certainly can do that. He's a phenomenal football player. Michael Carter behind him is just a worse version of him. Jack of all trades kind of guy. Tevin Coleman, veteran in this league. Ty Johnson, been productive when he's been in the lineup for the Jets. And then they also have LaMichael Pirine there, who they drafted on day 3 out of Florida a couple years back. Weapons, I have them 22nd. And I think Jets fans might be upset with this ranking, but they have to still come out and prove some stuff. Corey Davis, I think, probably is your number one right now until Garrett Wilson takes over that role. He's a solid physical receiver. He just needs to stay healthy. Garrett Wilson, absolute stud, will come out here, probably be the most productive guy here for the Jets. If not, that's going to be Elijah Moore, who can play on the outside and in the slot. This dude, when the Jets took him in the second round, I was like, crap, they got one. You know, this guy, he's going to be a player in this league for the next 10 years. Braxton Barrios, another solid slot receiver, had really good chemistry there with Zach Wilson last season. Denzel Mims, you hope you can get something out of him at this point. Then we talked about Uzomah, Conklin. They also added Jeremy Ruckert, really good blocker, more that like Dalton Schultz type guy, where he's just going to be a chain mover for them. And then their offensive line, who I am very high on, ranks 10th, even with the Mekhi Becton injury, because they brought in Dwayne Brown, who's a very good tackle, veteran, proven pass protector in this league. Elijah Vera Tucker hopefully takes another step in year 2. He was okay in year 1. Good run blocker, needs work as a pass blocker. McGovern, one of the more underrated centers in football. We talked about Laken Tomlinson. And then George Fant, who a lot of people gave crap for, but he was very good last season. Was a very, very good tackle for them last season. And then they drafted Max Mitchell from Louisiana Lafayette, who is a good prospect at tackle. They also have Chuma Edoga, who's played a lot. Nate Erbig, they bring over from the Eagles. Dan Feeney's another good depth there at the offensive line, who can play center and guard. Offensive coaching, I have them ranked 26th. I like Matt LaFleur. I just need to see more from him and this offense continue to be better. Moving on to the defense, which I think is more of a strength of the Jets, but I have them ranked a little bit lower than I thought I would. I have them 23rd. The run defense, I have them 17th. I think they're a solid run defense. Excuse me. With, guys like Carl Lawson, who's not as good of a run defender. Probably see Jermaine Johnson out there on early downs as he's the better run defender. Sheldon Rankins is a good run defender. Quentin Williams is a good run defender. John Franklin Myers, who got paid by the Jets, people were like, whoa, why did he get paid? He's a great player, phenomenal in the run and in the pass rush. CJ Mosley there, really solid linebacker. Quincy Williams as well, really solid. Quan Alexander, they bring him over. He hasn't been able to stay healthy recently, but when he's healthy, he's a really good run defender, and he's really good in coverage. CJ Mosley also probably a top 10 linebacker. No one talks about him just because he missed that year due to COVID, missed the year before that due to injuries. One of the best players in the league, man, at the linebacker position. Pass rusher, I have him 21st. Carl Lawson coming back from injury, probably there. Really good pass rusher. Quentin Williams, hopefully you can see him take that next step as that more dominant interior rusher, but we'll see. Sheldon Rankins is a decent pass rusher. Really like John Franklin Myers there as a 2. And then they have Jacob Martin, Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Huff off the bench, Vinny Curry, Solomon Thomas, Nathan Shepard in the interior as well. Linebackers I have them ranked 14th with Mosley, Quan, Quincy Williams, Hamza Nasirildeen. They got a lot of different guys in there who are all very versatile, all can cover. Most of them can play against the run. Nasirildeen's a converted safety, so he's more of that dime linebacker role. But overall, a very good group of linebackers. Defensive coaching, I have them 20th, and you're probably like, wait, what? Robert Saleh is, one of the best defensive coaches in the league. But their DC is Ulbrich, and he's not as proven. And Saleh is more taking a step back, CEO type. Kind of like we talked about with Rule. He's letting Ulbrich call the plays. So we'll see how that works out. And then didn't mean to skip over secondary and come back to him, but I'm coming back to him 17th here. Sauce Gardner, I kind of talked about this when he was drafted. It's a weird fit, but I still think he's going to be Sauce Gardner. He's going to be a good corner. DJ Reed's a perfect fit in the scheme. He's going to have a really good year for them. He was really, really good for Seattle last year. Bryce Hall, Michael Carter, going to be a solid, 3-corner, 4. Javelin Guidry has some speed there as well. And then Jordan Whitehead, LaMarcus Joyner, and Ashton Davis are a solid safety trio. Home field advantage, I have them at 21st, along with the Giants there for an average rank of 18.52 on defense. Overall wise for the Jets, I have them as the 25th best offense, 23rd best defense, 30th on special teams, not a great kicker or punter. And then 16th culture, I think Saleh is a good head coach. I think hopefully the Jets will take a step up with him as they're heading into year 2 of the Saleh era. I have them as an average rank of 23.2. Looking at their strengths and weaknesses here, I have strengths or the upgraded weapons, which will help Zach Wilson be able to hopefully take that next step and be a solid starter in this league. Offensive line, one of the more underrated offensive lines in football, in my opinion. Really solid group that they have there. They have a lot of pass rush depth as well, both interior and on the edge, so they can throw a lot of different bodies at opposing offensive lines to get to the quarterback. Weaknesses, I have lack of true number 1. I don't think Corey Davis is number 1. Garrett Wilson has to prove he can be a number 1, so we'll see who steps up there in that role. They have a lack of a number 1 pass rusher as well. As much as I love their depth, Lawson or Franklin Myers aren't a number 1 pass rusher on a championship team. And I have linebacker depth there. I think I meant something else there. I don't know why that's there. But anyways, really solid, team overall. I think they're one of the more underrated teams in the league, even though I have them this low. But I just think that, especially with the Zach Wilson injury, it's going to be tough for him. He's probably going to miss about 3 or 4 weeks to come back in there and, try and make a run in a loaded AFC, and the Jets have a super hard schedule to start off. But that is a wrap on my number 25 team. Moving into my number 24 team, I have the Detroit Lions. Going to be out here biting kneecaps and hopefully clawing their way into the playoffs. My hot take here is I think if Jameson Williams started from the beginning of the season, because I don't think he's going to be back till like November-ish, I think this team would have been pushing for a playoff spot. However, he is out, and he will not be able to play till like November, so I am not betting that they're going to be in the playoffs. But sneaky team here. We start with their key departures and additions. Anthony Lynn is out as OC. Nick Williams, veteran interior defensive lineman, leaves here. Trey Flowers, who they paid a lot of money under the previous regime, and Matt Patricia, he is gone. He is still a free agent. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who was a solid linebacker here, and Dean Marlowe, who played a good role on special teams and defense for them, is out the door. They promote Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator, for the additions here. DJ Chark, who was a 1,000-yard receiver before he got hurt last season. Very good, underrated signing here for the Detroit Lions on a 1-year, $10 million contract. They traded up for Jameson Williams. Probably the craziest moment in the draft for me, to be honest. I just did not see this coming at all, and it was a brilliant move by Detroit. I thought this was one of the best moves of the draft. Frank Ragnow, who, when healthy, in my opinion, is best center in football, coming back from injury. They draft Aiden Hutchinson at number 2 overall here, hoping that he can be their number 1 pass rusher. Romeo Okwara, who's a solid pass rusher, tore his Achilles last season. He is coming back. They draft Josh Paschal, who's an underrated prospect out of Kentucky. Jeff Okudah here, coming back from injury as well, hoping that he can be the player they took at number 3 overall. Mike Hughes coming over, former first-round pick of the Vikings. Deshaun Elliott, a solid safety, and then they draft Kirby Joseph from Illinois coming here to play. So, moving on to Detroit's offense here, I have them at 20th, which is, I think, higher than most people expect. And this man is probably higher than most people expect as well. Jared Goff is the 21st best quarterback in football. Yes, he is better than Daniel Jones. Yes, he's better than Zach Wilson. Yes, he's better than Trey Lance. Yes, he's better than Jalen Hurts. All you Jalen Hurts truthers out there that think he's a top 15 quarterback. He's not. Spoiler alert, he's not. Better than Tua. He's better than some of these guys. I think Jared Goff gets a lot of hate. Jared Goff has one of the best deep balls in football. He's a very underrated processor, in my opinion. I think the stuff with McVay telling him to throw the ball and people calling him the worst processing quarterback in the league is just far from the truth. I think he's more towards the middle than he is towards the bottom. So I don't think Jared Goff's the future of this team. Let me set that straight. But I do think that he is a quality starter here for this team. Then they got Tim Boyle, David Blau, Steven Montez to back him up there. Running back, I have 18th, and I know Lions fans are going to be mad about this because I love DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift probably by himself is a top 15 back, but he's got to stay healthy, man. If he can stay healthy, I think that Swift is in for a big season. I thought he was going to have a big season last year with the Lions not really having anybody there. He's going to have a really good season this year. Jamal Williams, solid RB2. Then they got Jamar Jefferson, who they took in the 7th round last year. Godwin Igwebuike, who is a converted safety, and Craig Reynolds as well, who showed some flashes last season. Weapons are 19th. And I'm going to be honest, if Jameson Williams was healthy, they'd probably be more towards like 15 or 14. Chark, one of the more underrated receiver ones in the league. Jameson Williams, I think if he was healthy coming into this, would have been my wide receiver 3, maybe 2 ahead of Drake London. I don't think I would have had him ahead of Traylon Burks, but I think I would have had him probably ahead of Drake London as my wide receiver 2. Dude's an absolute stud, man. Elite speed, phenomenal route running, great hands. This dude is the real deal. Monroe St. Brown surprised a lot of people last season, was the most productive receiver for Detroit. Will be their starting slot. Quintez Cephas is their 4th receiver, a guy I really like. I think he's a poor man's Marvin Jones. Should be able to showcase that here as their wide receiver 4 and probably their second outside receiver for the time being while Jameson Williams is hurt. Josh Reynolds, another guy that has chemistry with Jared Goff from their Rams days. And then Khalif Raymond is also there for a solid deep threat. TJ Hawkinson's one of the best tight ends in football. Phenomenal blocker, really good route runner, sure-handed. Then behind him, they got some other guys there as well. Their old line, people are sleeping on Detroit for this reason right here. Their offensive line is ranked second for me. And you're like, second? What the heck? Then you see who they have. Taylor Decker, probably the most underrated left tackle in football, I'm going to be honest. He's probably like top 12 to 15. Been a really solid starter for Detroit ever since he's been out here. I don't think he's missed a game. Really, really good player. Jonah Jackson made the Pro Bowl last season, one of the more up-and-coming left guards in football. Frank Ragnow, to me, is the best center in football when he's healthy. Right there with Jason Kelce as well. Hal Vaitai is probably the worst player on this offensive line. They gave him a bad contract just due to the fact that he was playing tackle. But at a guard, he's an absolute mauler, man. This dude runs people over. At tackle, he's not great because his foot speed isn't great, but at guard, he's more protected because you don't need to have as fast footwork, as good a footwork in the interior, but he's a phenomenal mauler in the run game. Part of the reason why their run game has been better the last couple of years. And then Penei Sewell, who's also a phenomenal run blocker. So you have two just absolute bulls in the run game for you, clearing ways for Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. And Sewell, after like week 3, was on par with Rashawn Slater. I mean, he's a freaking phenomenal athlete there at right tackle. That was a phenomenal pick in the 2021 draft by the Detroit Lions. Depth-wise, Logan Stenberg, Evan Brown are decent in the interior. They don't really have much on tackles, but this group, I'm telling you, if Detroit makes a play for a playoff spot, it will be because of the offensive line giving time for Drew Locke and making holes for DeAndre Swift. Offensive coaching-wise, they're ranked 22nd. I don't think they're the worst. Don't think they're the best. More towards the middle for an average rank of 16.58. Then, this is the reason why Detroit will not make the playoffs if you are lower on Detroit, is their defense is just, looking at some of these positions, man, awful. I have them 26th, which is higher than before, but it's really close between like 26 and like 30. So, it doesn't really mean much. Their run defense is second to last, and it mainly has to do with their linebackers, who we'll get to later, but Hutchinson's a good run defender. Nothing like outstanding or anything, but he's a good run defender, hustle player. He'll make plays, Dan Campbell type of guy. Michael Brockers has took a step back last season. He's a good run defender, and they're hoping that he can be the guy he was in LA, when they traded for him. Aleem McNeil should make another step up. He was a third-round pick, I believe, last year out of NC State. And then Romeo Okwara is a good run defender in his own right. But Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Chris Board they're just, this linebacking core. Almost as bad as the Giants there. Josh Paschal's good in the run game. Better run defender than he is a pass rusher right now. So he should get some early down work. Austin Bryant as well should get some early down work as a bigger edge. Levi Onwuzurike, I think, should be better than he was last season as well. And keep an eye on Malcolm Rodriguez, who I think should probably be their linebacker 1 as a 5th-round pick out of Oklahoma State. Phenomenal player for the Cowboys last season. Pass rush, I have 27th, not much better. I think Aleem McNeil can be better. I think Levi Onwuzurike can be better, but Romeo Okwara is a solid 2, and I think Aiden Hutchinson's probably a solid 2 right now coming out. Brockers isn't a great pass rusher, so anything out of him at this point is good. And then Charles Harris, Julian Okwara, Josh Paschal, solid, rotational edge guys. Linebackers have him ranked 31st. Alex Anzalone is pitiful. Gerard Davis is probably their best linebacker here. Derek Barnes has the most upside. He's more of that hybrid type. I would honestly start Derek Barnes and Malcolm Rodriguez at linebacker. I honestly would. They cut Sean Dion Hamilton, who I thought was better than Alex Anzalone and Gerard Davis, but they cut him, so he's no longer there, but just a pitiful group of linebackers. Secondary-wise, this is where I kind of get excited. They're 18th. Amani Oruwariye is probably the most underrated corner in football. In my personal opinion, I think he's a better corner than Trayvon Diggs. I don't think there's much difference between the two of them. he was, with no one around him besides Tracy Walker, making plays. All over the field, he was making plays. He was guarding the best receivers on every team, and for the most part, holding up. Jeff Okudah, we'll see how he does this season. Hopefully, he can be that number 3 overall pick they drafted him to be. Mike Hughes, another former first-round pick. Intrigued to see how he does here. Afetu Melifonwu struggled in his rookie year. Hopefully, he'll be better as their dime cornerback. They don't really have much depth behind them. Tracy Walker, one of the most underrated safeties in football. Huge fan of him. He was really, really good last season, playing all kinds of roles, playing 1 high, 2 high, in the box, guarding tight ends, even playing in the slot and sometimes. Tracy Walker's a very versatile player. Deshaun Elliott comes over from Baltimore, really solid in the box player. And then Kirby Joseph is probably going to be your up top roamer, playing deep safety. Will Harris, Brady Breeze, there's some notable depth there at safety as well. Defensive coaching, I have them ranked 26th. Home field advantage, I have them ranked 23rd for an average ranking of 24.84. And moving on to their overall team, again, I have them at 20th for offense, 26th for defense, 12th for special teams. Jack Fox, good punter, and they got a solid kicker there as well, whose name is escaping me. 19th for culture. I think that I think Dan Campbell's a really good head coach, and I really want him to be the guy to win Detroit a Super Bowl. That would be awesome, man. Dan Campbell, you can't cheer against him, man. And then for their average rank is 21.55. Moving on to their strengths and weaknesses. Strength, biting kneecap culture, man. Dan Campbell gets you to run through a wall for this team. And I think that has value in the fact that it's a coach you would want to play for if you were a player. And I think that's something that's underrated in this league. Another strength, obviously their O-line. I have them ranked 2nd. They're just a phenomenal unit. I think that they, if anything, could carry this team to being in the, fight for a playoff spot. And then I love their youth in the secondary. I think that if Okudah and Hughes hit, look out, man. This team could be a lot better than people think. Run defense is definitely a weakness with their lack of presence at linebacker, which I have as another weakness for them. And interior pass rusher, there's not really getting anything from them. They have a lot of unproven guys there. Hopefully, Aleem McNeil and Levi Onwuzurike can step up and be solid pass rushers for that team. But that is all for me there as we are wrapping up our number 24 team. What did you think of this video? Are the teams in Tier 5 the teams that should be here? Is there anybody that left out? Anybody that should be higher in this tier? Or anybody from the last tier that should be in this tier? So let me know in the comment section, please. The next video is probably going to come out on Saturday. I was planning on doing Wednesday, Friday. That's probably going to be resulted to next week just because I had a busy Tuesday. And then I probably could get it out Friday, but I'm just going to save it for Saturday. That will be tier 4, the playoff hopeful. So stay tuned for that video. But other than that, thank you for watching, everybody. And have a great day and peace.